everybody, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling, and on this episode I'm going to be talking about a book that's been out for a couple of years now. Just recently picked up and had the chance to read, and it's related to my most recent book, my Sammy Hagar book, but it's straight from, one of the sources, somebody that would know. This is The Electric Church. This is the story of Bill Church, bassist for Montrose and longtime bassist in Sammy Hagar's band up until he joined Van Halen. And it's credited to Martin Popoff. We know Martin. And Martin's even said his name should not be on here. It's Bill's story, and it's Bill's words. So what Martin did was the same thing that Greg Renoff did with the Ted Templeman book. He basically had, the subject tell the story, and he wrote it out. But this is Bill's story. Long-time bassist, played on the first Montrose album, and then played on, I think, Sammy's albums from 9 out of 10 scale all the way through the OA, and that they've had reunions since then. He also played with Van Morrison, and I like the style of this book. It is very conversational. I have spoken to Bill, messaged back and forth. I actually sent Bill a copy of my book, and I love the cover. I think that it fits right along with that first Montrose album, the way that everything's written here. And I like the fact that, they call it the Electric Church, because the first thing I ever heard from Sammy Hagar, and I talk about this in my book, is the truck stop tape, but it's got a live version of Bad Motor Scooter from All Night Long. And he introduces the band, and he says, Bill Church on bass, the Electric Church. So I knew right away that he had this nickname, and he talks about why that is, and it's a really interesting read from Bill's point of view. He his father was in the military, moved around a lot, was in different countries, and always tried to get different bands going. Moving up to the Bay Area was a significant thing. He was in a band called Starbuck, and then obviously met Sammy, met Ronnie first, Ronnie Montrose, because Ronnie was also playing with Van Morrison. But when Ronnie Montrose wanted to start his own band, here comes Bill. Not right away. It's an interesting dynamic, and you really get a feel for what Ronnie Montrose was like to work with and was like as a person. Seems like he had a lot of demons. Very talented guitar player, but and Hagar has said much the same too. You kind of get that confirmation from Bill too. But talks about the first Montrose album and then leaving before the second album, and then Sammy eventually leaving Montrose and saying, "Hey, you're coming with me," basically. And it talks about just the struggle on those early Capitol albums to break through on a big scale, because none of those albums certified, and then the change from Capitol to Geffen in the early 80s. Now here comes some success, and Bill and Gary Peel and David Lauser, they all became very, very recognizable, mostly because of the I Can't Drive 55 video. By then Jesse Harms was in the band too, and they had the matching suits, and one of the things I enjoyed reading about this was I had never before read from any of the band members that played with Sammy for such a long time, Bill more than anybody else, about just what they thought when Sammy joined Van Halen. And you can imagine you had a pretty steady gig, and you're gradually getting more and more successful, and you're playing bigger and bigger places. You've got songs on the radio, you've got songs on MTV, and it just came to a dead stop because Van Halen wanted Sammy to sing for them, and Sammy jumped at the chance. And it was he talks a lot about the Farm Aid gig and how that information was relayed, and it's a compelling read. And then he talks about what he did after that, tried to get different bands going and never really did. And he talks about a lot of Bay Area guys like John Nyman from Y&T. Y&T gets a lot of mentions in here too. One of my favorite parts is him talking about the HSAS side project album that Sammy did in early 1984. So HSAS, Bill calls it, HLSB, and I'll let you read the book to find out what that stands for. And he talks about the reunions in later years, and tragically, what happened to Ronnie Montrose in 2012. He passed away, and he had a lot of mental issues. But it kind of reaffirms what I've always thought about that first Montrose album, was that if that had been a hit right off the bat, I think that they would have been one of the biggest rock bands out of the 70s, certainly to come out of the States playing that kind of hard rock music at a time when not a lot of other bands were. So, he comes off very likable in this book, and he doesn't hold any grudges, but he shoots straight, tells it like it is. Some funny stories in here about, other musicians and just, life on the road. It can't be easy, But, if you're a fan of Montrose, and if you're a fan of Sammy's solo stuff, you already know who Bill Church is. This is an important story. This isn't some guy that joined for one album. I mean, this guy was by Sammy's side for over a decade, being that steady, like a bass player is supposed to do, being that steady thing. And there was also a really big shocker in here about an opportunity that Sammy was calling him about that he didn't realize. And he talks about this, like not being able to recognize an opportunity when it comes along, and he's very self-effacing in that. This book is actually being sold directly from Bill, or maybe it's his son Trevor, I'm not really sure, but it's sold on eBay. I will post a link below to how you can get yourself a copy of this. It's a great read. If you're a fan of Sammy in any capacity, even if you're a fan of Van Halen, Montrose was even influential on Van Halen, I would highly recommend picking this book up. So it's credited to Martin Popoff, but all Martin did was transcribe what Bill told him. Bill Church, The Electric Church, the biography. Get it. You won't be sorry. It's a great rock and roll read. I'll post a link to it below. Of course, yes, my Sammy Hagar book, Red on Black, is also available. I'll post the link to that, and I want to thank everybody that's purchased that and all of my books. But here you go. Go get Bill, The Electric Church, get his biography, and enjoy. Thanks for watching this edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. We'll see you later.